The responsibility is to be accurate. The responsibility is to be truthful. The responsibility is not to mislead the viewing public.
I was lied to. Being lied to so deeply that I still feel like someone has stabbed me in the back while I'm lying down. That scary line came from a strange interview tape that was said to belong to Lorne Greene, the man who has long been linked to the calm, gentle spirit of Hollywood's golden age. The tape was only available online for a few hours before it was gone for good. Still, it was enough to make everyone who saw it stand still, because in that dark, shadowy video, Greene wasn't the warm, caring father figure from Bonanza. Instead, he was a man with a lifetime of wounds who was finally ready to name the people who had brought him to his lowest points. With a tired, stressed voice, Greene admitted that the most cruel people in his life were the ones he used to think of as co-workers, friends, and even family. Someone messed up the most important part of his career right before he was about to hit the top. Some people used his name to spread false information about him, almost getting him involved in a scandal that could have destroyed his image in an instant. And maybe the worst part was that the people he had helped and shielded ended up stabbing him in the back for money with no thought or regret. That being said, what names did Lorne Greene hate until the end of his life? We go over each one again in this movie and show a side of Greene that the audience was never meant to see. In that moment, John Wayne caused a fight that Lorne Greene would never forget. Their tension didn't start with yelling matches, cold stares on set, or small battles on screen. In fact, neither man had ever said anything mean to the other. Something much bigger than either of them set everything off. The huge change in Hollywood in the late 1960s. Traditional movies had been John Wayne's kingdom for decades. Since Stagecoach came out in 1939, he had a firm grip on the Western genre. However, a new territory was opening up: television, which he never thought would be a threat. And Bonanza, which was run by Lorne Greene, was at the head of this change. Week after week, tens of millions of people watched the show, often more than saw big Hollywood movies. Two worlds, two ways of thinking, and two huge influences. Greene and Wayne were put against each other in a fight they had no intention of taking part in. On April 14, 1966, the spark finally went off. There were a lot of reporters at the Beverly Hills Hotel when John Wayne spoke to them about El Dorado. The room was full. All of the big news outlets were there, including Variety, The Hollywood Reporter, and the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner. The Herald-Examiner then asked a question: would the rise of TV westerns make film westerns less valuable? Wayne didn't think twice. He answered straight out that TV westerns were watering down the real spirit of the genre, leaning into the microphone. It didn't take long for the press to turn those words into something much more explosive: an indirect attack on Bonanza. In just a few hours, newspapers from San Francisco to Denver used Wayne's comment as an attack on Lorne Greene in their titles. Right then, a fight that started because of how Hollywood has changed turned personal, at least in the eyes of everyone else. Lorne Greene read the story first thing in the morning of April 17, 1966, in his dressing room at Paramount Stage 10. He didn't feel angry, he felt like he was going to pass out, and he didn't want to be cast as an opponent to a famous person like John Wayne. He didn't want to be drawn into the fight between movies and TV. Dan Blocker, who played him on Bonanza, remembered that Greene hit the table with the newspaper so hard that a makeup bottle broke. Not because he was mad at Wayne, but because Wayne had caused a media storm that went all the way to Greene overnight. By April 20th, NBC had gotten more than 200 letters asking Greene to stand up for TV. The Bonanza crew had to get together quickly to talk about how to deal with the press. Greene had always been calm, and he felt like his image was being dragged into a debate in which he hadn't said a word. The stress didn't go away. The Chicago Tribune ran a shocking story in August 1967 called "Greene and Wayne Face Off in Palm Springs." It said that the two were seen standing next to each other at the Palm Springs Convention Center during a city fundraiser. The mood was said to be as tight as a drawn string. While there were no pictures to back up the claims, rumors quickly spread on local news stations such as KTLA 5 News and KC Sacramento. Bonanza got out of hand, and director Leon Benson had to call an emergency meeting to calm the group. Wayne didn't make Greene mad. He was mad that the media turned silence into a fight between two men who didn't really dislike each other, making them into symbols of opposite forces. That anger built up over many years, hitting its peak in February 1971 when Playboy published a long interview with John Wayne. It didn't talk about Greene or Bonanza. Still, magazines like New York Magazine and the Chicago Sun-Times chose to draw a comparison. Wayne was strong. Greene was calm. Wayne was the rough-and-tumble Wild West and Greene was the smooth broadcast version of the Western. The media blew this difference up so much that Greene had to ask his assistant to weed out any news stories about Wayne in an NBC meeting on March 12, 1971, so he wouldn't be pulled into the chaos. But there was something deeper that few people knew about that anger. During World War II, Greene worked as a radio reporter for CBC. He was haunted every day by the thought of having to tell millions of Canadian families sad news about the deaths of soldiers. Because of this, he has a lot more respect for people who have actually served in the military. Greene knew something wasn't right when the press praised Wayne as a symbol of the fighting spirit even though Wayne had never served in WWE. He never said anything bad about Wayne in public, but people who knew him well said that he got upset when the media kept calling Wayne America's hero without pointing out that this wasn't true. Greene was wary every time Wayne's name came up because of this opposition, which never turned into a straight fight. Wayne wasn't an enemy for Greene, but he had been annoyed by him for a long time, so he stayed away from him. Whether Wayne meant to or not, he always found a way to get his name into stories that Greene didn't want to be a part of. As the media's pressure grew, Greene realized that this time in Hollywood wasn't just a fight between movies and TV, but also a change in the way people think about movies and TV. Even more surprising to him was that soon after, a lot of new competition from Europe came to the US. Along with them came a young Italian actor who helped create a whole new style of cowboy movies that Greene found even scarier than the noise Wayne had left behind. Part 2. Clint Eastwood, the actor who made Greene feel like he was living in a different time. In Lorne Greene's heart, stress had been building since the early summer of 1966 when no one on the Bonanza team was ready. For the first time, The Good, the Bad and the Ugly opened on July 1st at New York's Criterion Theater. United Artists' box office report showed that the movie quickly rose to the top of the charts across the country in just over 10 days. While this didn't bother Greene, it was a story in Time magazine on July 23 that really got his attention. The magazine praised Clint Eastwood for 4 whole pages, calling him the man who brought the spirit of the Wild West into a new era. Greene was shocked by the last statement. This is the kind of cowboy who doesn't really care about morals, he just lives by his feelings. Greene had played Ben Cartwright for almost 10 years. He was the perfect dad and the show's emotional center. He knew right away, though, that the world was changing in a way that was very different from what he had known. Still, it only took one line from Time magazine for Greene to understand that Hollywood was changing into something completely different, rougher, colder, and less stuck in the morals of his time. On August 12, 1966, the Los Angeles Times released a harsh review by critic Jack Moffat. This made things even worse. Greene was portrayed as the overly careful face of TV, and Eastwood was shown as the rebellious figure who was changing the cowboy genre. Over 30 local papers ran the story in the same day, making Greene and Eastwood look like complete opposites to the public. Greene is usually calm, but he couldn't hide how upset he was that his name had become a benchmark for a bygone age. He got to the Paramount Stage 16 set with a sad heart by the end of August. Later, people on the crew remembered that he didn't usually bring newspapers to work. Still, he had several folded copies in his hands that day. He didn't say anything, but his quiet said a lot. Everyone could feel the pain of a man who felt pushed to the side by the business he had helped create. The Nielsen numbers still went to Bonanza, but those stories made Greene very aware of the fact that things were going to change. In 1968, that knowledge had turned into real pressure. In September, NBC sent an internal report to production leaders that showed more and more people under 30 were interested in a new, edgier Western style. In the same year, Clint Eastwood's movie Hang 'em High owned the box office for more than a month, which proved the huge change. A director told an NBC meeting at Burbank Studio on October 18, "The audience is looking for something grittier." Michael Landon was the kid who was acting out and wanted to play the father on screen. Greene has always seen Eastwood as more than just a foe. He was the personification of an age coming to an end, and Greene had to face the unsettling truth that the Western world he had learned to love was changing without him. Eastern was more than just a foe to Greene. He was a representation of a door closing and an age passing away. Everything Greene, which stood for morality, discipline, and the steady father figure, didn't fit in with a market that valued toughness over direction and cold calculation over warmth. When Eastwood became a director in the early 1970s, the strain got even worse. When Dirty Harry came out in theaters on December 23, 1971, it became a cultural phenomenon right away. Many people couldn't look away from Eastwood because of how cold and serious he was in the movie, even though it wasn't a Western. The news outlets used the difference to make Eastwood and Greene seem like they were opposites. By 1972, at least 16 stories made direct comparisons between the rough new wave and the calm, disciplined TV stars of the previous decade. TV Guide's March 1972 cover story was very blunt. One is from yesterday, and the other is from tomorrow. Greene didn't answer in public, but people who were close to him saw a quiet routine start to take shape. He put down the pages of magazines he didn't want to see when he brought them into his changing room, leaving the quiet to do the talking. That silence was like words he didn't want to recognize. A quiet defense against the truth of what the media says. People also used Eastwood's personal life to make comparisons. The news never stopped talking about his scandals and contract issues from 1969 to 1972. Even though Greene wasn't interested in these stories, the media used him as a comparison to Eastwood's unpredictable and free-spirited personality because he was quiet, calm, and steady. Greene felt left out when he was played as the background for someone else's drama, which was something he had never been through before. Later, NBC editors remembered that starting in 1972, Greene stopped going to meetings about new audience trends because he knew that Eastwood's name would come up as a sign of a changing era. The man did not dislike Clint Eastwood. He didn't like that Eastwood stood for an era that Greene didn't fit in anymore. As Bonanza entered its most troubled years, marked not by competition from outside the company, but by internal strife, this quiet anger nodded at him. Creative differences, staff changes, and small tensions on set, especially within the Cartwright family, made things much harder than the fights in the entertainment business outside of Hollywood. Michael Landon, who used to be the kid who liked to play and be happy, started to show himself as a creative force that was challenging Greene's authority. It had been 4 years, and Greene had kept Bonanza running like a Swiss clock. He got to Paramount Stage 16 at 7:40 a.m. every morning before anyone else. He checked the props, met with the lighting and post-production teams, and made sure the show went off without a hitch. But by late 1966, a new current had come through the Ponderosa. It was his on-screen son. Landon joined the cast in 1959 as a young, lively actor, and he has always added fun and energy behind the scenes. But by November 1966, he was quietly changing how he did the work. He started writing short stories about his character's personal journey without talking to Greene or the other experienced writers. The crew was shocked when NBC accepted one of these drafts and gave Landon credit on the February 5, 1967 episode. Greene looked at the assignment sheet in the script room at Stage A1 and understood that the new writers were taking over the creative power that used to belong to him and the experienced writers. By 1968, script talks at Paramount's A2 room were very tense. Within minutes, 2 different ideas came together. Landon wanted Greene to write more emotionally, about pain, breakthroughs, and personal conflicts. This was different from the steady rhythm that Greene had built up over almost a decade. As each scene went by, Greene could feel the ground beneath him move. The Ponderosa was changing. Greene never saw anything wrong with evolution, but he was sure that Bonanza should keep the family values, honesty, and moral lessons that drew millions of watchers every weekend. From that base, problems with Landon slowly started to show up. Each person became more and more suspicious of the other's plans. Greene thought that Landon's idea to give younger characters more screen time was moving away from the show's main theme. Landon, on the other hand, saw Greene's insistence on sticking to the old structure as a possible problem that could let Bonanza fall behind the changing world of late 1960s TV. The quiet conflict hit its worst point in June 1972, when the episode Forever was being made. The writing put more emphasis on the younger characters and made Ben Cartwright more of a figurehead. One writer remembered Greene sitting still over the first page, so still that the air conditioner's hum seemed out of place. He put the draft down and walked away without saying a word. That quiet was stronger than any argument, and everyone in the room could feel the tension that wasn't being said. During this time, creative talks would often go late into the night. Greene and Landon could face each other for hours at a time by July, like two opposite generals who are not willing to give up. Greene said the show should stay true to its roots, while Landon said it should grow up and change to fit the tastes of its viewers as they do so. Their differences never turned into yelling matches, but whenever they were in the room together, an unspoken weight made the air thicker with each word. The pressure went past the sound stages. From 1969 to 1973, Michael Landon's growing fame was always a part of pop culture. Numerous newspapers and TV shows, including Photoplay, National Enquirer, and Movie Mirror, kept an eye on everything he did. As Landon became the face of the new generation, Greene could feel the currents changing more strongly. He knew that the show he had worked so hard to build for more than 10 years was changing in ways he couldn't fully control or ignore. For years, Landon's name was always in the news because of tales about his personal life, relationships, and way of life. Greene had always tried to stay away from personal rumors, but he was suddenly the subject of a lot of public attention. NBC would call Greene to the PR room after almost every story about Landon and ask him to sign off on a statement in case reporters came calling. Not once did he blame Landon. He really liked and cared about the younger actor, but the constant attention took away from his sense of control, both over his work and over how people saw him. The truth was easy to see. They did not have a personal grudge against each other. Greene was always the face of Bonanza and the show's main character. But behind the scenes, the young actor was now in charge. Greene was aware of this, and in the last few months he would often sit quietly in his dressing room before each scene, as if practicing how to accept a truth that made him feel bad. Fighting with Landon all the time drained Greene, leaving him half-tired. But what was coming next made him even more alert. Just as things were getting really tense inside Ponderosa, someone from outside came in and started spreading stories and causing trouble. As soon as Greene stepped foot on the set, he knew he needed to be careful. Inside pressure was one of the most persistent types. The rebel in the Cartwright house is Parnell Roberts. After a 6-year rebellion that began in Bonanza's second season in 1960, Lorne Greene was worn out. It wasn't because of a single fight. The crew from Paramount Stage 12 remembers that Roberts always had something to say against something. Each complaint seemed to go right to the heart of the show that Greene had been building for years. Roberts had strong beliefs about art. He pushed for a rougher, more accurate picture of the West. While Bonanza was based on Ben Cartwright as the perfect father, Robert didn't like this way of seeing things. In an interview with the San Francisco Chronicle in 1963, Roberts bluntly called many events modern-day fairy tales. This caused a stir and brought Greene into the public eye, even though he tried to stay out of trouble. Roberts' attacks on the show's father figure were what annoyed Greene the most, not his criticism of the show itself. Roberts always said that Adam Cartwright, his own character, was overshadowed by Ben Cartwright's power, leaving an unbridgeable gap between them. In late 1964, script meetings often got heated. Greene kept a calm exterior while fighting on the inside to deal with criticism of a character he had worked on for 10 years. A lot of things in Roberts' personal life made things worse. He spoke out against some social policies and often went to debates, which won him the title of Hollywood's most unpredictable star. At that moment, the news connected Bonanza, a show about families, to political arguments, which made Greene even more angry. Williams's annoying arrival and Roberts' constant opposition marked the beginning of one of the hardest times for Greene on Bonanza. It tested his patience, professionalism, and commitment to the world he had built. By 1965, Lorne Greene's daily life on Bonanza included dealing with problems. Parnell Roberts' rebellion got worse when he refused to go to promotional events and then skipped a charity game in Las Vegas without warning. NBC made Greene answer for things he had nothing to do with. At that point, Greene saw that Roberts' disobedience was no longer just a personal challenge. He had to carry that weight. Once Roberts left and then came back for special shows, Greene's attention would change whenever his name came up. He didn't hate Roberts. The constant friction, on the other hand, wore him out, leaving him feeling tired even after the cameras stopped moving. Fake man was newcomer Guy Williams, whose presence could bring scandal and trouble right into the middle of Bonanza. In the fall of 1967, Bonanza was having one of its most stable times on Paramount Stage 12. Suddenly, NBC made an announcement that sent shockwaves through the company. An extra show was going to have Guy Williams in it. If you've been reading Hollywood news for the past 2 years, Williams' arrival felt like a dark cloud coming in from Santa Monica. At first glance it seemed normal. The stress wasn't about skill. Fans had loved Williams since his time as Zorro, but he had been involved in a lot of trouble since leaving Disney in 1965. Williams was seen as unstable and unpredictable after months of contract fights that were widely covered by the Los Angeles Times, Variety, and TV Guide. Back in the 1960s, even a hint of this kind of baggage could make co-workers wary for years. After NBC made the news, reporters went straight to Lorne Greene to ask her questions. Journalists asked Greene if he didn't like working with strong personalities by bringing up old stories about Williams' messy breakup with Disney. In interviews that November, Greene was as nice as always, but people who were close to him could tell he was uncomfortable. Williams arrived on set on December 3, 1967, followed by a crowd of paparazzi, including writers from the Hollywood Citizen News. This made things even stranger. They did not watch Bonanza. Their cameras were pointed at Williams because they wanted to record his comeback in the music business. Greene was furious when shooting had to stop so security could clear the press. He had been protecting Ponderosa's calm rhythm for a long time. For him, the set was holy and a place of order, and he wouldn't put up with interruptions after more than 10 years of keeping it running smoothly. Things quickly got worse between Greene and Williams. Williams was very careful with his work and asked for retakes if he thought a look wasn't right. Greene, who liked things to run smoothly and quickly, didn't like these delays. At least 3 scenes for episode 2850 had to be filmed more than once in the first week. This made Greene so angry that he left the set earlier than normal. Later, crew members said that whenever Greene went by Williams, the air seemed to freeze, as if 2 different worlds were on the same stage. Even though no one was yelling, the stress in the air said a lot.